Hello, and welcome to the We Get to Do This podcast. My name is Kailee.
And I'm Jacob.
And we are your co-hosts.
In this show, we're going to dive into all things our lives, from our partnership to romance to entrepreneurship to growing our businesses together, our fitness journeys, and we're going to have a ton of different guests on that relate to what I just said in some way. We're hoping you enjoy the show, and if you do,
please feel free to follow us, leave us a 5-star review on wherever you listen to your podcasts, and enjoy.
And if you don't like the show, tough. Thank you.
Thanks.
Hello, and welcome back to the We Get to Do This podcast. We are on episode 7.
Episode 7.
My lucky number.
Really? How
Yeah.
come?
I mean, it has nothing to do with the fact that I was born on the 7th, and all the fact to do with It's just a lucky number. Thanks for remembering that it's my birthday. You really know me well.
Anyways, episode 7. What do you want to talk about today?
Today we're going to do a little recap of, we were out up on the North Shore all weekend. It was the Superior Fall Races, which in Minnesota, if you don't know, it's kind of like Trail Christmas for trail runners here and road runners, but it's basically this huge gathering of trail runners from all over Minnesota, and people travel like from all across the states. I can't remember what they said, but there's a lot of different states that come here, probably from different countries too, but it's put on by Rock Steady Running. The storm camps do it, and it's a freaking blast.
It might be store camp. The store camp or storm camp?
That's the storm camps.
Well, hopefully they're not listening
sorry,
to this.
John.
I'm
But
pretty sure it's store camp.
Okay, one of those. But they're awesome. And so there's a 100-miler, a 50-miler, and a marathon. The 100-mile starts at 8 a.m. on Friday morning. It's always the weekend after Labor Day every year. The 100-miler goes throughout the night, and it ends on Saturday. And you have 38 hours to do it, I believe, because it's an extremely challenging and technical course. I've never actually done this full 100-miler, but I have done the marathon, which is the end of the course. And then this year, Jacob and I both got the privilege and honor of pacing, which you've done before, but this is my first year of pacing for the 100. And it was quite the experience. I haven't paced for any races before. I've volunteered, and
That's wild.
every year I volunteer for the Superior races. I'm up there, but I've never actually paced anyone before. So we got to, good, I can wear my performance running gym hat.
Well, we went up Friday, and we spent all day Friday at 2 different aid stations. And if you're watching on YouTube right now, you can see we got the first aid station. We were at PRG, Performance Running Gym, their aid station. Then we went to another aid station, the other aid station they put on at night in Finland. So here's the hat we got. Shout out Issa and Aaron. Now it's on Kaylee's head. She loves it. And then we also were at Temperance, which, again, if you are familiar with the area, they're points along the course. So there are people volunteer and set up their aid stations and whatnot, right? So if you're familiar with it, you know what we're talking about. But we got these shirts.
Shout out Mill City Running. Looks good. It says, "Welcome to Temperance," and it's a Nike shirt. Shout out Nike also. They're pretty cool though.
Yeah, these are cool. And we both wore them out today grocery shopping, so we're those people.
Yeah.
We
Outfit of the day.
Our Temperance shirts and matching PRG hats. Just kidding. We didn't wear the hats. We couldn't look exactly the same.
I've become my parents with matching outfits.
But
and then we also got the Superior hats, which were a cool orange trucker hat.
Oh yeah,
running mesh hat.
We should show that too, but I don't know where ours are. But
they're somewhere. It's a bright orange. So if we were hunters, they'd be good hunting hats.
Right.
We're not, but it's good for the winter and stuff to be seen.
Lots of cool merch.
Lots of swag.
We spent Friday at aid stations, and then we crewed for our runner. or one of the runners we were supporting, I should say, not ours.
Yeah.
But we crewed overnight and paced overnight for her. And Kailee she paced from like 10 p.m. to 3 in the morning or so.
Yeah.
And while she was doing that, I tried to sleep. So I got some sleep. But what that ended up doing, so you started your duties at like 10, but you didn't actually leave the aid station until about 10:30. And then I didn't leave Finland aid station until 11. And then I went to the place that I was starting, Crosby. And by the time I laid down, I think it was like 11:17 or so. So I think I was able to fall asleep sometime in 11 range. And then my alarm was set for 2, but I woke up at like 12:40 and had to pee. So I did that. And then I just woke up at 1:30 actually. So I had about 2 hours of sleep. My Oura ring tells me I had 2 hours of sleep, which I actually felt pretty good compared to last year when I was pacing and woke up in a really weird middle of the night time. This year I wasn't like shivering or out of control, like cold or any, like super, super tired or anything. I actually woke up and felt like because I slept in the night range still, I think I was able to kind of follow my circadian rhythm a little bit. It just felt like I didn't get enough sleep, right?
Yeah, I mean, falling asleep before midnight
and waking up after is just the really, right. So I got like the heart of that. I don't know. I'm not a sleep scientist, but then and a lot of this is hindsight, right? I ended up at the aid station at about 2:15, and then you two didn't come in until after 3. So I could have probably got another hour of sleep, and that happens every year where whenever I pace some of those middle sections in the night, you're very worried about missing your runner, which...
Did you have service there?
No. I don't have service, right?
Yeah, so that was the other challenging part of the whole time is service sucks up there. So like it would go in and out. So even if you're trying to communicate, because I was sending texts to you guys the whole time saying, we're 4 miles in, we're a mile away, we're a half mile away, this is what time we're leaving. But my texts weren't going through, so I kept trying to repeatedly do that, and then I wasn't sure if you guys were getting them either.
No, we got one from you when we were walking up to Crosby, and the timestamp was 1:55 or something, and you said we are 2 miles up, 2.5 miles up, or whatever. And so we thought, oh wow, okay, so they're not gonna be here for probably an hour, 45 minutes at least. But we also thought, is the timestamp correct? So anyways, so the variables, it's a tough game to play, especially at night. Mm-hmm. So then we ended up just chilling at the aid station for an hour, basically, and then I relieved you of your duties, and then I went and paced until 10 or so in the morning. And then I stayed up that whole day and didn't sleep at all until we got home. And surprisingly, I felt, again, kind of okay. I felt groggy and like I didn't get enough sleep, but I was shocked at how not messed up I felt, besides just super tired. And then I was in bed for 11, 12 hours last night and got 10 hours of sleep. So, but your experience was different because you got messed up.
Yeah. And I think that's for a number of reasons. And we've talked a lot about this, but ever since the 200, I don't know, life has literally changed. My brain, I feel changed. And
right, because you finished pacing. What happened when you finished pacing?
Yes, I paced from 10 p.m. to 3 a.m. And normally when I've done other night races, I actually kind of enjoy the night, and maybe that's because it gets cooler at night, it's quieter at night. But I'd never had the experience of starting at night. And I had thought that I would be able to get a little rest before starting, but we were volunteering from 12 to 8 p.m. And then we had to head to the next aid station to pick her up. So by the time we got to the aid station, it was 9:15. And I was like, well, she could be here by 10, so I'm not going to sleep. So then I just started going. And so then it's waking your body up by doing an activity starting at 10 p.m. eating.
When you're supposed to be very much in your resting.
Yes.
Very much in your resting phase.
And we are all pretty much always in bed by 10 p.m. We're very good sleepers. And so for me to just start going at that time and then be eating at that time too. And we hadn't really eaten that much all day, but then I was trying to eat before I went out and then hit the aid station after the first 8 miles of my section. And I was eating a slider at, 1 a.m. and some cookies at 1 a.m. and drinking electrolytes. And that's just not normal for the body to be doing. It's not great for it, but that's what you do in these races. Been there. But then got done at 3 a.m. and I was pretty tired throughout the whole thing. I mean, it was pitch black. You can only see what's right in front of you, which normally I like that because it makes you very present with where you are. But for me this time, I was just getting a lot of flashbacks to the 200. And like for a lot of the 200, it was, I would say maybe 90% of the 200, I was in a pretty dark place. And the other 10% was like kick ass and felt really good.
The first 10 miles were great after that.
In the last 5 miles, it's about 10% then, right? Almost. So yeah, so I was just thinking about that a lot and going through my own pain cave thoughts. And I paced 12 miles of this. So it was nothing compared to what they were doing. But after being at the aid stations all day and then being with, the person you're pacing, you can just see the pain on people's faces. And after having been through that, not this specific race, but like having been in ultras where just everything hurts and it's uncomfortable and you can stop, like you can stop at any time, but finding that will to just keep moving one foot in front of the other for hours on end, it made me realize that I'm not ready to go do a super long effort again. And people keep asking, what's your next big thing and what's the next move? And we're talking about, the Solo Speed Project, which is a 300-mile race
or
next
Javelina.
year. Or Javelina 100. And I've just realized that there's like so much pressure that I probably just put on myself. But after doing something like that, it's kind of just expected that you're going to continue doing those things. And that can probably go for anything. I mean, you hit a sub 3-hour marathon. I'm guessing you're probably expected to continue doing that. We're doing like hitting good times and stuff. I may disagree, but
no, yeah, I don't know. I think society. Actually, I don't know if it's society as much as it is ourselves, but I think we put pressures on ourselves to continue getting quote unquote better. But at what point does that stop? Right? That was my epiphany this past spring. That I was going through similar things with running that I feel as though you're kind of going through right now, in a sense of I just got to ask myself, why am I doing this? Because you set a big goal or a time goal and you tell yourself, once I hit this, then I'll be good. And then you hit it and then it's, okay, well, I might as well just go for the next one.
yeah,
But
so you're
yours
like
is
less
also,
capable of that.
right, you're in a whole different situation though completely with this whole 200 thing than I was, because I feel as though the 200 kind of took away some of your joy of the sport almost, maybe. That combined with that marathon and trying to, run faster. I don't know. It's your story to tell. But mine hasn't. There wasn't a specific race that I finished and then it like robbed me of some of my joy of the sport.
Yeah.
My joy of the sport got altered for different reasons that are super important right now.
And I had never experienced that before but I think, from my background of starting out slower, doing more road stuff, then I found trails, found a ton of joy in trails because it became less about the time and more about the journey, being out in the woods, every course was different as far as terrain, hills, elevation. And then I slowly started increasing that distance, starting, with marathon, ultra marathon. I did a couple 50 milers, 100 miler. And then the next, in my mind, logical step was to do a 200 miler. And like you said, I don't know if I'd say it robbed me of the joy, but it's definitely changed my perspective on it a lot. And being out there this weekend, I think just made me realize that I gave my all to get through that 200. I mean, it took everything. Like, I dug deep to finish it. And I've talked a lot about how much it affected my nervous system and just put me in that fight or flight mode for days on end. And I think that's something that just I haven't forgotten that yet. Like, I talk a lot about, there's a book called The Body Keeps the Score. And my body remembers being out there for that 200, whether I like it or not. And, it's been 6 months, almost 5.5 months, which is a good chunk of time. And being out there, specifically at night, all the miles during the 200 were hard, but especially at night. And then starting in the dark for, 4 days. It just brought me back to that spot of being like, you need to keep going. You need to keep moving and not really having, because I went into it not giving myself the choice to stop. I'd said, I will finish unless I break an ankle, unless something super bad happens, I'll finish it. And I've realized in the last, 5-6 months now that I don't want to push my body to those limits at this point. And it doesn't mean that I'll never be there again or that I don't want to push in other ways. But I feel like that kind of like fire and that ambition almost has gone down a bit. And so doing those night miles, I was like, wow, this is really hard. And I just don't know how much I want to be doing this at the moment. And doing the 12 miles, I was like, wow, I'm really happy I'm not doing this whole 100 right now. And I had gone into the weekend being like, for sure going to do it in 2026. We can't do it next year, unfortunately, because we're going to be at a wedding, which is going to be great, but we won't be at Superior weekend. So we were talking about doing it in 2026. And I mean, my perspective might be completely different in 2 years. But after doing that this weekend, pause.
We're in the middle of cooking dinner, so this is going to be a quick interrupted break. Brought to you by no one, because we don't have any sponsors yet. But here's the thing. We are two budding entrepreneurs looking for sponsors of this show. So if you are listening right now and you are someone that is interested in also getting whatever it is that you have in your life, either a company or maybe your family or anything really, I guess, that you're willing to help us out with the expenses of the show, and we'll promote you if we agree with you, I guess, and like you. If it's like a product that we don't want to use or that we don't use, we probably aren't going to promote it. So anyways, if you're interested in doing that, please, this is your plug to hit us up, and we would love to chat. And we are back.
We are back. So anyways, I was just saying, it's hard to say where I'll be in 2 years, but I did not think that I would still be in this state 6 months later. And we were just talking today. It's not that I regret doing the 200, but also I don't know if I would do it again, if I would choose to do that. And
are you proud of yourself for doing the 200?
Yeah. I am proud of myself.
Good.
But also, there's, long-term effects to all of our choices. And I chose to do that. I chose to put my body through it. And again, it's the aftermath that's tough. Because I enjoyed my training. You coached me through it, and I did tons of strength training, running, mindset work. I loved all of that. I loved training through the winter. We were talking today too. I haven't had a winter off of training for a big spring race in 3 or 4 years. Most people take the winters off, and that's their, off season, and take the time to, do the strength training, do all the things that they haven't been doing. And I've chosen to go the opposite route and then continue to train through the summer. And it's interesting too, because I'm a big believer in living with the seasons. And, Chinese medicine, winter is a very yin time when we slow down, quieter. And I just pushed through it all winter and never really gave myself that rest. And that's been for the last, 4 years now. So I don't know if that has anything to do with it too, of just not letting my body chill for a little bit and continuing to push and do something bigger and quote better every year. But I'm saying it, we're putting this on the pod, but this winter, I'm gonna chill for a little bit. And to me, that doesn't mean not doing anything. I find a ton of joy in movement. It's good for my mental health. It's good for my body. I feel good doing it. It's my community going to runs and everything. But I think I'm going to change my perspective on training for something big to just going back to enjoying and finding the love of the sport again. And when I say that, it's not that I haven't enjoyed running by any means. I still do really enjoy it. I think I need to find a way to just get myself out of this fight or flight mode every time I'm out on the trails and being I need to go do something bigger and better now. And I think once you've done something, once you've hit whatever it is in life, that big goal that you've been working towards, and you realize that was a huge accomplishment that you worked really hard for. I've been finding, how do you come off of that and then learn that you don't need to top that with something that much bigger the next time. I think that's been my whole life, is just figuring out better, more. And it doesn't need to be like that. And I'm learning that I can have just time goals. So I'm, doing TC 10 miler, and that's a huge feat in itself. And I'm learning that running a mile is pretty incredible. And I tell my patients this, I tell my friends this, running a half mile is great. So why am I putting all this pressure on myself to do these extra long distances? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, why are you?
You're smirking at me.
I'm letting you do your thing. I think this is good. I think it's relatable. I think people need to hear this, I put my coaching hat on, and then logically my next question for you is, it depends on how far back you want to go. Why did you do 50 miles? Why did you feel the need to do 50 miles? Why did you feel the need to do 100 miles? Why did you feel the need to do 200? And I think that you don't need to necessarily answer that. Those can be personal things, right? But I think understanding that is important. And then from there, you can kind of think about whatever that why was, right? Whatever your reasoning for doing 200 miles was, really at the core. Did the 200 miler solve that? Right? But also the other thing is that No, because a mile is extreme, so I can't even say that. Because I was gonna say like the 200 miler was really, 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 really extreme. You're moving your body for 4 days straight in sleep deprivation up the wazoo, right? So you had other elements that ended up causing this PTSD afterwards. That like legit. I mean, obviously I don't diagnose PTSD, but it's in my opinion, it seems like you have because we'll be out on trails and it's like you think back and have these flashbacks and traumatic experiences. And like when I work with my therapist, we have specifically talked about how PTSD doesn't have to be we associate with like military, but there's aspects of, a lot of life. And there's specific things that I work with mine about that he's classified them as PTSD for me. Right. So in my opinion, you have some type of stress response when you're out on the trails and the body is remembering it. And it's like, hold on, I do not want to do this again. Right. So you have like these two different elements right now in my mind that you're kind of balancing of why did you do it in the first place? Right. Which I think and understanding, okay, maybe the 200 didn't suffice that why. And now logically in your brain, you go, okay, well, I'm going to go to the next one, right? To suffice that why, right? But the problem was that the 200 caused this ripple effect of trauma, essentially, it seems, that now you can't, right? Like, am I kind of onto something? I don't know. But it seems as though it's like now you can't go further than 200. So now what do you do? Yeah. Right? And again, we've talked about your why and whatnot, and it's not really important to this podcast. People can be relatable. They don't need to know your whatever. So, but I think that's part of it. And I have seen that with a lot of runners. I've seen that with myself. You hit a goal and then you realize that the why that goal didn't fix anything. And then, okay, well, for me, all right, I'm going to take 10 more minutes off my marathon. I'm going to take 15 minutes off and whatever. And then again, it's not going to fix anything. So then you get to this point of, okay, we need to start doing some different work here, I think. Right. And I was talking to a client the other week about this, how, and I think I heard this from Coach Bennett originally, but the blunt version is that running doesn't owe us anything, right? I wouldn't expect you or any other relationship that I have I keep using fix, and like, I'm not saying that you need to fix, like, whys are always negative things that you need to fix, but you're following me, right? But I wouldn't expect anyone else to do any of that internal work for me. Why do I expect running in this time to do some type of internal work, or distance to do some type of internal work for me? Right? Yeah. We all do.
Yeah.
And that's what I think that you and I have grappled with a lot this year, and I see you kind of grappling with right now, but we've talked about other people too, and we've talked with other people that have grappled with this, right? And then that's where I get into my whole thing with the relationship with running can be used as a space to do that work. But running is not going to fix that. And you can't use running to outrun that work. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I don't know if that made sense to go from what you were saying, but that's kind of where my mind went.
Yeah. Well, and when you're talking about the 200 and not going past that, you're talking about that on our bike ride this morning, when I was saying, for me personally, being someone who always wants to be achieving and being the best at different things, it's hard when in my mind, my mind and body are telling me that's kind of your limit right now. And I hate using the word limit because I'm a big believer in you can do anything that you set your mind to, but also learning that 200 is good for me, at least for the next long amount of time.
For now.
For now. Definitely for now. For a while.
I'm not pushing you to do
And-
200 by any means.
No, you don't
I want
want
to
me
make
to.
sure that's clear. I would not recommend a 200 for anyone.
Yeah.
Anyone. And I would definitely not recommend volunteering / crewing / pacing for a 200. That might be a hot take, but I did not have a good time at all. I did not like watching you or any of the other people there. That was too much suffering. It was hard. Anyways.
Yeah. Seeing your partner in pain for...
That specifically was the worst part.
And especially
and
the fact...
I'm sleep deprived too.
Right.
You know? And I'm doing... So my brain got all effed up too. And then, yeah.
And just the fact that I was choosing to do that too. It just adds that whole other element. It's not like I was sick in a hospital bed trying to get better. It was like I was willingly putting myself out there for days on end to do this goal.
With my experience pacing other runners in the past, when I've had runners get to the point in which they want to quit and be done or, start talking about, this is so hard, whatever, blah, blah, blah. Those negative things, they come up, right? I've always been in a state of mind to say, no, let's keep going. I'm good. You're fine. Get up. I'm good, right? The 200 was the first time I paced someone where I also wanted to quit. So then it was a different game of why am I here, right? And obviously it was for you, but it was just a whole different...
Well, you did 50 miles of it with me. I mean, you did your own ultra during that as well and not sleeping. So...
Right. It was just
there were so many elements
to
that run that have just carried forth into life now. And I've just realized I'm in this big protection mode right now. And it's this push-pull of I want to keep achieving and hitting these goals and doing these cool things because I did this, while also being but also I want to protect myself. I want to rest. I don't want to have to do those big things to get the respect of other people and myself. And I think there's both of those things there. I try to compete with myself, and I'm not we've talked about this too. I mean, it's fun succeeding and having people cheer you on. And
when you become known, I mean, you're, at least in the circles we're a part of, and in, I would say Minnesota for sure, you are known as a 200 person.
Yeah.
Who else has done a 200 in Minnesota?
It comes up a lot.
Right? We're at Mill City, and someone says they're interested in trails. Kailee, immediately, right? Which is dope.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
It's a good feeling too.
Absolutely. But then every time it brings me back, and it's did I like it? Would I recommend this? But no one's asking that. People don't really want to do 200. That's the thing too. And I think it's it sets you apart. I don't know if in a good way.
Yeah.
Because
you tell me. I've never had that issue.
I mean, I think I've talked about this before, but how, everyone wants...
Tier,
No. Well, it's everyone wants to be included, right? And accepted and everything. And I've realized that the 200 might have been too much. I think it put, and this, I don't mean this to sound cocky or unique or anything, but I think it was that limit where people can't relate to it anymore. And
unless you go hang out with people with 200s.
Yes, which is just, at this point in time, it's becoming a lot bigger and more people are doing it. But at this time, 100-miler is incredible. And it is. Again, a marathon is incredible. All of these distances are amazing. But it just made it seem Kailee can easily do this because she's done a 200. And to me, it's this is actually still really hard. Just because I've done that doesn't mean that it's this easy task. And yeah, so it's just been another thing, another side of it to grapple with, and to not really have many people to understand that. And along with that, the people who have done 200s, such as the people that I did cane break with, a lot of them, it seems like they had a good experience in that they went and immediately signed up for next year. And then I'm sitting over here being like, what's wrong with me? Where I'm like, hell no.
Right.
I do not want to do that. So it's figuring out, am I just, weaker than them where it was a bad experience? Like how's my experience different?
So interesting how we think.
Yeah, it's terrible because, but again, it goes back to comparing.
Right. Because you say that it's just so interesting how the mind works, right? And everyone thinks this way. Because on the one hand, you're saying it was too much because I went to a different mind spot, I don't want to say level, spot, whatever, than a lot of other people in the world, right? And now it's almost like I'm a little too unrelatable, right? But at the same time, then your mind goes to, but there's this group over here that has done it, and they want to do more. But why don't I want to do more? I'm unrelatable to them, right? So you're just always like I think that way. I think everyone thinks that way, right? I wonder what I haven't heard him say much about the 200 after.
We have David on.
We should have him on and see what he thinks.
David was this badass runner who also did the 200, who's now going for a sub 16-hour 100 miler.
Yeah.
So he took it the opposite way and is like, I'm going to kick ass.
He's not doing our 200s. Maybe he's also like, I don't need to do a 200 again. I don't know. We should have him on.
Maybe he signed up for Canebrake. But yeah, there are all these people who want to do it again. And I think that made me feel isolated another way. So it just leaves you in this like weird spot. And I have a hard time talking about this because, again, I don't want it to seem like poor me or, but like the goal of our podcast is to be real. And these are things that I've been thinking, and it just came up a lot with this weekend and being up at Superior.
And I think the people needed to hear it. I think that's great.
Because I think why I love running is that it is so relatable to life. And I feel like this could even be, you hit the CEO position of your company.
Right.
And this is something you've been working for so long. You've put in the time, you've put in the effort, you've made those connections, and then you hit it. And all of a sudden now you're the boss of everyone. And now what? Where do you go from there?
Right.
So I know I'm not alone in saying this. It's just my thing was the 200 miler. But yeah, I mean, if you're getting famous all of a sudden, if you become, the owner of a multi-million $1 company, like whatever it is, it's hard.
It is.
And then it's figuring out, okay, now what? And I think we need to understand that the now what doesn't need to be this next big accomplishment.
I think that's deep.
It's something I've been grappling with. And I think it will always be like that, especially having our personalities being, entrepreneurs. And, I always tried to be the straight A student. And there's going to be different times for pushing. And
that even gets into, we should wrap this up soon, but it even gets into thinking about like kids and what kind of message you want to send to kids, because that 200 made me think about that even of, I don't want, at what point does working hard as a message become too much?
Right.
Yeah. Anyways,
this is episode 7.
We get to do this podcast.
We get to do this, and thanks for listening. And
outro music.
This is fun, guys, and God's work never stops. So
we get to do this.
Peace.
Peace.
Peace.